Hey, we have 7 people on this evening, so we are going to give it about, a couple more minutes and we will get started here. So thank you everybody for joining in this wonderful evening. So if you have not already, comment wherever you are listening, YouTube, Facebook, and let me know where you're from so I know who is on here. There are 7 of you. I know 2, possibly 3 of you that are on. So we will go from there. Oh, hey, Connie, how are you? So startled. What is that about, Tyler? So, yes. Oh, so hopefully everybody is having a wonderful Saturday evening. I know I am so far. Hey, Lindsay. Awesome. So I got Lindsay and Tyler, my brother, and Connie and Pamela. And I don't know if I think Tom's on here this evening. So they're regulars and a few new ones. So I think we will have a wonderful evening as always. So we will get started here momentarily. Oh, I look startled. Oh, I'm just here for the algorithm. That works for me. So, well, if you have questions, so tonight we're going to talk finding your creativity and inspiration. So, oh, Connie is doing great. Looking forward. I missed last week. If you missed it last week, you can always hop on Facebook or YouTube and catch the replays. Hey, Diane is here. Awesome. So we've got 9 people on. I don't know. Boy, I feel like a king tonight. I haven't had 9 on for a while. So we got Diane and Connie and Tyler and Lindsay and a whole bunch of people. So, oh. So, you know what? We might as well get started here as we kind of have people come trickle in and trickle out. So hopefully everybody, I think, boy, we've had this almost 3 months of this now. So pretty exciting stuff. So let's talk tonight, finding your creativity and inspiration. So if you haven't been here before, wherever you're listening, YouTube, Facebook, throw in the comments any questions at any time, and I will try to catch them. And I will answer them as we go. Or if you want, leave them till the end. But I love answering questions as we roll. So I think as we kind of start to figure out your creativity and inspiration, I think sometimes it comes, sometimes it goes. You have it, you don't have it. So I'm going to kind of just give you several little different things that you can do to kind of find inspiration or creativity. I recently spoke with, I think it's the Great River Camera Club down in Muscatine back in November. And I was taking rando questions at the end of the presentation. We had talked about the building blocks of photography. And that was just, kind of everything I do is in a process to kind of figure things out to take the picture, or my photograph, trying to find out subject and impact and things that just all come into making a photograph. And I had a guy ask the question. He's like, Justin, how are you creative? That was a good question. I don't think everybody asked that question before. And I was like, And I kind of was a long-winded answer. So I kind of thought about this and I thought, why not? Let's talk about creativity, finding it, because it comes and goes. So number 1, I think one way to find creativity, or I don't know if I want to say if you want to find creativity or inspiration, is I recently listened to a podcast, I don't know, in the last 2 months. And the lady talking, I don't remember what podcast it is. I don't wholeheartedly listen to any one podcast episode for episode. I will type in what I want to listen to for the day, and I'll find a random photo podcast that I'm like, oh, that one sounds good, and I'll click on it. And then I'll just type in finding creativity, and then you get lots of artistic ones and things like that. And then there's some photographer ones. And this lady said, creativity or inspiration, maybe more on the lines of inspiration, has an expiration date. And I was like, what do you mean by that? And then as she went on talking about it is, you get creative, you get that inspirational feel. And if you don't pounce on it now, it can go away. And I thought, okay, she's onto something, because I can be at work, plugging away on the computer, and I'm all in focused into work. And then all of a sudden I'm something catches my eye and I'm like, ooh, look at the light on that tree out there. And then I get all these, I get inspired about photography and not selling promotional products. So it's things like that. Random, totally inspiration might hit whenever. So sometimes you can't jump on that little bandwagon and grab the camera and go rush off to feel inspired. Or last weekend, we went to the Nutcracker, and great. We're watching along, and all of a sudden, I don't know what it was, but I started getting all these photo ideas in my head, just watch the Nutcracker. Well, I can't get up and leave my seat at the Nutcracker and go grab the camera and start doing these ideas. So I had this like internal fear that if I don't get some of these things that bounce around between these ears every day, out somewhere on paper, whether it's on the laptop and in some Word document or on a piece of paper. I live off sticky notes. Over here on my wall, there's like 7 sticky notes. I got sticky notes all over my desk at work. Things I need to do like tomorrow, like really important, I'll write it down, even though it's in my system at work to remind me. I stick it on my phone because it's the first place I go in the morning. So for me, people say, well, create an idea journal. So I used to do this way, way, way back in the days of college. I actually did a couple of things. So I started out with an idea journal. So things that I thought of. Yeah, maybe I want to photograph. It might be a word like farmers, which leads to a good one. I wrote that word down, farmer project. That's all I wrote down. Those 2 words back in 2000 and would have been after basic training. So 2005 in the fall when I was in Alaska. It stayed in that notebook. That notebook, for some ungodly reason, went from college to moving in with my wife, and then we moved to the house and all that good stuff. And I never did anything on it. But it was out of my brain. I never thought about it anymore. And then something else inspired me when I did a photo workshop with Lynn Area Photo Club that was all about, oh God, what was it? Cannot think of his name. But we did a workshop with him. He does adventure photography, Canon Explorers of Light. I'll think of his name later. But he does pictures of farmers. Well, it's more of ranchers, but we won't go into that. And hey, Sid, I just kind of caught you on there. So then I got thinking about it. Well, then all this stuff started coming back, and then I grabbed some ungodly reason. I even have that notebook right there. So it's right on the top shelf. I still have it. And where all this is leading to is it's kind of like an idea journal. Or I want all this stuff on paper because I'm afraid I'm going to forget it. And if I'm afraid I'm going to forget it, I'm so focused on that until I do something with that information. So starting out with number 1, long way there, is idea journal. This is mine. Look at all the tabs. I got all the tabs. This is a 3-ring binder I made myself because I could not find anything godly in this world that worked the way I wanted. So all the things I do. So my first one on here is I have my to-do list. It's like business stuff. I got a business tab. Late night exposures. If I got something I want to do for this, I write it down into that tab. I've got one for the Next Shot podcast. I've got one for next year's goals or business goals, things like that. So this is usually with me at work. It's in my backpack. If I think of something, I'll write it on a sticky note, write it down later. It may even just be a super like moleskin journal that you go off and buy at Barnes & Nobles. And you just write these things down. Maybe you break them down into like categories or whatever you want to do, but have an idea journal. Maybe something you stumble across online. You're on Instagram and you're like, maybe you get inspired by, a leaf in a water photo that you saw, but you thought for some reason that idea triggered in your mind something way completely different. That happens to me. Whatever reason it happened, so you can write it down. So then you can just take all these things. So let's say you're not feeling inspired or you're not feeling creative. You don't know what to take a photograph. Pull out the idea journal, whatever you want to call it, and say, hey, that's great. I want to do that. So then you have something to kind of get you started. You're not sitting here scratching the head and like, what am I going to do? You have something to go to. Things like that. Number 2 is photo projects. Everybody should know I love photo projects. So I have several going on at any one time. And when I'm talking like photo projects, these can be long-term, short-term. A lot of mine are long-term. Farmer project. It's going into like 3 years now, probably a little longer than that. It's kind of been on the back burner. COVID hit, all that crap. Hard to get a hold of people, whatever. So it's kind of tabled. But I'm photographing farmers because sometimes that's not something I can just whip out and say, I'm feeling inspirational today. Let's go photograph farmers kind of thing. But having projects or something you can do all the time. I had the wonderful, what do I call it? I don't know. experience with Paul's Photo and the Creative Photo Academy about 2 weeks ago, maybe even a month now, where I got to help I was inspired too by these projects. They were 22 or 23 advanced photo students. I got to help critique. I don't want to call it critique, but they presented their projects to us via Zoom. They kind of told them about themselves, the project. Now, these are projects they worked on for a whole year, which was awesome. So one that sticks in my head a lot is it was called Any Way You Slice It. And I was like, what does that mean? So some of these most of these projects, I had the ability to look at them beforehand. I looked at some of them, but not all of them, because I feel like when I critique something for somebody or look at something, when I've already seen them, I think into them too much. I look into them too much, and then it becomes too much of like thoughts of like, well, this could be better, that could be better. But it was one of those where she did any way you slice it. And I was like, what is that? And it was actually, once she talked about it, it was food. And it was very detailed macro shots of food. And some of them were like, oh, that's an orange or that's a kiwi. And then there were some that's like, that looks like a super macro shot of watermelon and things like that. So now I might do something like that this winter. But having a project or something you can do at any time at home, or maybe I've seen another thing, I want to call it a thing, but a project that somebody started where they took little, went over to like Hobby Lobby and got, popsicle sticks and wrote random words on them or subjects or genres of photography, throw them in a jar. And she's like, when I get bored, I pull one out and I'm like, blue, I'll photograph something blue. Because sometimes the hardest part of finding creativity or something to photograph is coming up with what to do. I mean, I can sit here all day and tap my thumb and like, and figure out what I'm trying to do. So for me, it's like, well, if you have something pre-written up somewhere, or like I know a lot of people, I don't know if Jan's on here tonight, but Jan does like these, what do you call it? Like a 365-day project. That's a little much for me. But sometimes you can just Google 365 project, and it's where you take one photograph a day for 365 days a year. But each day is like, day one is like pink, and it could be anything pink. Or one day it's flower or truck, car, whatever, totally random words. But if you had something where you could just have a jar of sticks with words or whatever, things on it, or maybe like, I don't know, house, and pull it out, and then you can be creative. It's getting over that first barrier every time of what to be creative. Now, sometimes it's easy to be creative. I mean, we can go out to, my mom called me tonight. We're talking about a trip to Great Sand Dunes National Park in end of May and Mesa Verde. She's like, where do you want to spend more time? You know, when you go to a place like that, creativity and inspiration is all over the place. Really, because you don't have to come up with it. It's already there. But when we're stuck at home in Iowa and it's 32 below zero and blowing snow out your window, it's a little hard if you're not that like whimsical, snowy photographer who wants to go out when it's bitter cold. That's not me. To something to do in the house. So I've been thinking ahead of projects or things like that. Now, other projects I work on too are one that it's called POP 500. So POP 500. And what that is I just photograph towns in Iowa that have a population of 500 or less. And what's nice about that project's pretty much planned out. I have a clipboard that has all the towns in Iowa that I put into an Excel spreadsheet and said, hey, find everything at 500 or less, weeded out everything above 500. I actually then one day broke it out by county. And I can be like, I haven't been to Alameda County yet. There's 3 towns. I might drive up there. And who knows? I might not find any of those towns to photograph, but it's that barrier. It's the initial barrier of getting over what do we need to do? How do we need to do it? And where do we find creativity? So when you have that initial barrier to knock down that wall and say, okay, I know what I'm going to go do, the rest can kind of come pretty easy. So projects, I don't care. I would say for this winter, if I was you, geez, there's 13 people on here. I'm ecstatic. But is find something, find a project. I don't know, maybe it's photographing. Is that on my list? No, but let's say, here's a good one. Let's say you don't use your 50 millimeter lens very much because you don't like it for some reason or whatever. You just don't use it. I don't use my 50 very often. Maybe pick a day just a day or an hour or 5 minutes for all at that point, and use it. Just use it. Find things. Or maybe it's using your 50 millimeter lens only at aperture 1.8. Or maybe it's using your 50 millimeter at only f22. And give yourself some parameters and photograph that way. That is just one of those things you're kind of started. It's going to teach you limitations of a lens or how to see with a lens. So, there's so many ways you could take a project, whether it's a long-term project or short-term project. I mean, short-term could be 6 months or less, or maybe just the winter, or maybe a 5-minute project of just learning one little thing. Things like that. So projects are awesome. Having that idea journal, maybe come up with, let's combine 1 and 2. Let's take your idea journal and break it down into sections or whatever, and maybe do a page. It's just write the word pink, and everything that comes to your mind, it's pink. And then throw those right under it. So the heading pink, and I'm not just like house, car, flower, shirt, pants, shoes. I don't know. Those all just came to my head, whatever reason. Write those down there, and then maybe go find pink shoes or pink something or whatever. I don't know what it is. But at that point, geez, my chair is rolling away. But just do that. Come up with ideas. Write them in your idea journal, whether it's a project or like 50 millimeter lens day, or maybe it's as simple as every Wednesday, I'm going to, from 1 to 2 p.m. in the afternoon, I'm going to do something photography related. Whether it's watching a YouTube video or watching one of the Saturday night exposures, reruns, whatever you want to call it, on one you missed, or whatever it may be, find something photographically driven that's going to help you take work to the next level. So any questions so far? My secret, when I'm going to tell you about my secret project, not for a long time. Sorry, Mary. I don't know. It depends. It's probably lots of things depend on the secret project. Maybe not till it's actually finished and where it needs to be. And we'll go from there. So, any questions so far on any of that? Or any other way? No? So, here's an oddball one. Number 3. Take a day and only use this. Right here. Yes, I said it, the phone. And I'm going to tell you why. So, let's go back, I don't know, 2.5 years. When I first started, I've had an iPhone since, I don't know, second generation of iPhone. I think it was the 3GS possibly. One camera, didn't like it, obviously, because I'm a photographer. But I'll tell you this. 2 years ago, they introduced the Pro, which has 3 lenses. Regular lens, telephoto lens, and wide angle lens. Jeez. And the reason I like this thing and only use this for a day, or any day, not just a day, maybe every day, is this does one thing. You really can't change shutter speed. You really can't change aperture. Well, we can fake aperture if you have an iPhone, or even some of the Androids will allow you to do, Apple calls it portrait mode, where you can kind of simulate 1.4 versus f22, whatever. But when you can't change, and we don't have to worry about all this extra crap, like, no offense, like I love my camera, my Z6 and my 850, but sometimes we get so tangled up in shutter speed, aperture, ISO, what focal length, RAW versus JPEG versus RAW fine versus JPEG fine, what's my white balance, what's my shutter speed going to be, do I need spot metering, center, all that crap. All of it gets all jumbled up here, and it just kind of takes the fun out of things sometimes. And this thing doesn't do that. I can't change all that in here. So what this thing allows you to do is focus on seeing. Let's talk about inspiration at the spur of the moment. I don't eat lunch at work, at my desk, or in the building. Hate it. I'm in there 8 hours a day. I don't want to sit in on my lunch and eat in there. So I go eat in my truck. I heat up my food, I go in the parking lot and eat in my truck. Because it's just like I'm out of the building. I get on TikTok, or I'm doing businessy things, answering emails, messages. But I'm sitting there, I don't know what day it was this week. And I'm like, scrolling through TikTok. I'm like, whatever, eating my food. I look up, And I see this. And let me find it. If you can see it. Oh, it's probably, no, there we are, if you can kind of see it. It's water droplets on my truck window. And I'm like, first I'm like, well, that would be, I'm not going to kid. I looked at it and was like, wow, I wish I had a macro lens. And I'm looking at it, I wish I had a macro lens of my Z6 or my 850. And I'm like, duh, no, use this thing. It doesn't much matter. So I literally took a break like 3 minutes and I photographed water droplets. Guess what it did? I was inspired. So instead of letting that inspiration and creativity expire and go out the window, I took advantage of it and created an image off my phone. Am I going to do anything with it? No, but guess what it did? It got me into a mood of seeing or something photographically related. Then at the same time, like I said, this thing helps you see. You're not focused on all this other junk. Shutter speed, aperture, ISO, and focusing modes, and all that. So it allowed me to focus on seeing an image and only studying the image and how can I make this image the way I want it to be. And what was nice, I know the limitations of my phone. I was like, well, it's shooting really wide. Don't like it? I'll use the ×3 zoom. Boom. Zoomed in on it, and I'm like, oh, that's kind of cool, but oh, maybe I should shoot it in square. I was still going through a photographic process in my head. I just wasn't using a camera. So the phone will actually help you forget about all this junk over here and only worry about one thing, two things, creativity and seeing. You can see it, you can be creative with it, and with all of this stuff we can do with the camera, we can only do about this much with the phone. And what that helps do is teach you limitations. That this thing has a limitation. The camera, that has limitations, but a lot less. You know, like you're pretty wide open on the world with what you can do with the camera. So when you learn to do things with limited resources, especially in the world of photography, maybe, you know, like when I started the whole Saturday Night Live or Saturday Night Exposures thing, or late night exposures, I've called it about 16 different things since we started. But I started out with literally, I got a whim of, I have nothing to do in a hotel room. So I hopped on live and had how many of you jump on, and I was like, wow, there's something in here. People want to listen. So then I started it where I did it on the computer. Then I got the software. And then I started getting the lights. And then I'm like, you know what? Then I got the mic and I just upped and upped. And what? All that because I used this thing. I went to a hotel room, used a stupid desk lamp, propped this puppy up here, and shot my first video in a hotel room. If I not would have done that, I wouldn't be here every Saturday night. And sometimes another, let's throw a bonus tip in here between 3 and 4, is sometimes you just have to do it. Just do it. Like, don't sit here and think of all the limitations of, I can't, that's the biggest thing I need to get out of my head is I can't do this because I don't have this. Well, how do I do this without that? Find a way. You know, and then when you do come to a situation where you can't do something, you can be very quick on your toes, figure something out quickly. So the biggest limitations, even with inspiration and creativity, is just getting over that barrier, get into it, do it, whatever. Wow, we have 15 on here. Wow. Any questions? Sandy, happy to hear this. Yes, use your phone. There's nothing wrong with it. I mean, I worked in the camera store, obviously, for almost 8 years. And not that I was brainwashed that this was a bad thing. I kind of was. But you know what? If this is the only thing you have, there's no reason you can't go out and take photographs. There's no reason you can't be doing it for fun. Just because you don't have a $3,000 camera or a $6,000 camera or even a $500 camera, you can start out here. You know how many people have started here and went to the camera in front of me and the one behind me? It's a progression. So yeah, I don't think there's anything wrong with it. It's one of those things that you can use the phone. It helps you see things, makes you think differently, and it's almost a freeing experience because you don't have to worry about all that extra junk, the shutter speeds, the apertures, and the ISO. So looking at number 4, try a different genre of photography. Simple as that. I'm always full of stories if anybody knows me. So let's jump way, way back. I don't know, 4 years ago, 3 years ago. I kind of fell into a rut. So I have kind of figured out my photo life is, how do I want to put it? It's kind of like the economy. You have good years and you have bad years. And it always seems like they're like, every 8 years we're going to have XYZ. Or every 6 years it seems this happens. I can almost guarantee every 2 or 3 years I get a rut. Probably about every 2 years. I go 2 years, rut year, 2 years, rut year. And what happens is, for me, I got into a rut. What's great is when I come out of that rut, that next year is freaking amazing. I'm just like knocking out photographs like crazy and ones that I love because I was in a rut. It's kind of like writer's block for photographers. And so long ago, I was in a rut. I didn't know what to do. I was still at Photo Pro. It kind of weared on me in a sense of I was always having to worry about how to tell people their photos are sharp and tell people how to do this properly and on and on and on. No offense, I loved it. But my God, as photographers, I almost wish photographers were like painters, if you think about it, because I feel like I almost said true artists, like photographers are not true artists. We are. But in a sense of, it seems like so many other artistic types of people are not afraid to experiment. And I think photographers are. Because YouTube told us, or the book told us, that there's one way to do night photography. There's one way to do this. There's one way to do this. Hate that. I tell people, or they're like, think outside the box. No, think like there is no freaking box. Like, who says you can't just, I don't know, whip your camera around? So I was tired of things have to be sharp. And this lens only does this. So I was in a rut and I thought, you know what? Wonder what happens if I use a neutral density, I go really slow shutter speed, and I whip the camera around. I got into ICM photography, or intentional camera movement. So I'm purposely blurring crap when most people wouldn't, because we'd want it to be sharp and in focus and bokeh and depth of field and all this stuff. Well, guess what? I threw all that out the window. That was the most freeing frickin' experience ever. Like, I didn't have to worry about any of that. Then I got out of that rut. And then now if I get bored, I go back to that because no photograph is alike. So I tried a different genre of photography. I thought I was creating something I hadn't seen before. It's been done, obviously. I found out, but it was new to me. So let's say you really love landscapes. Maybe try portrait photography, or maybe try macro, or something different. Because what that allows you to do is see differently, experience things differently, which then will allow you to go back to your regular genre of photography or your regular norm that you like to do and take a new brain, a new way you see the world, apply that to landscape photography. So back to the ICM thing. I had to learn that color, light, shape, form, all that still applied, just in a different way. That then in turn helped me with my landscape photography. I started to notice light better. I noticed color better. I had better compositions. I started seeing flows of hills or whatever, leading lines, things like that better, because it was a lot harder for me to do in ICM work, and then made my landscape stuff easier. Or maybe it's just like, maybe you like get into still life. That's something we can do in the winter in Iowa and set things up and photograph stuff. Or maybe it's even sit there with your lens and like, I don't know, I'm looking at a sugar-free Coke over on my desk over there, and I'm looking at light and I'm seeing shadows from my fill light to the left. Maybe it's just photographing stuff as it is, just general life kind of thing. So, just try some type of other different genre of photography. And, hold on. I got some stuff off. Let me go back to that stuff here in a minute. I'm so usually I'm looking at my thing, but I'm just on a roll tonight. But, find a different genre of photography and roll from there, and that will help you open these creative worlds. So Tom said, let me pop this up here. Can you create a Flickr page for your followers? At one time, my brother Okie Bill, I miss Bill, and Mike and myself will get together to encourage each other to grow our creativity. That is probably a good thing. I don't know if it'd be a Flickr page, but, well, let's put it this way. If you have not requested to join my group that is connected to my Justin Tedford Photography Facebook page, it's a Clicks and Coffee, which will be the second Saturday of January. I'm trying to figure out what to do with that group. That would be an awesome group. So if you're in there, post a photo. If you're not in there, let me know. Message me on Facebook and I'll pop it in there, because I posted in there one day, what do I want the group to be about, other than reminding people that's what we do. I think that's a great idea, Tom. And then, yes, and Pamela says looking forward to the coffee shop in January. Oh, let's see. Oh, I'm glad you're starting to feel inspired, Diane. I feel like I missed something. Oh, Sandy said, I'm happy to hear this, Justin. I use my phone a lot, working on using the Canon more, though. See? Exactly, Sandy. That's a thing. And by the way, I have your calendar. I probably should bring that over this weekend. I have another one to deliver to Marianne. Didn't forget about you. But yeah, it's a process. You're using this device and moving into gradually getting into your camera more. It's perfect. So, looking at any other questions so far? Let's look here. So, number 5, look at other photographer and artists' work, but there's a but with an exclamation point on my paper. This can go 2 ways. It can go really, really good, or it can go really, really bad. I think it's great to be inspired by other people's work. Maybe it will trigger something that inspires you or makes you feel creative, but the but is the slippery slope. It's like having one foot in the grave and one on a banana peel, to be honest. Is the more we look at others' work, it's not a bad thing. You can start to see how they see light and shape and form and color and composition. But what I see is a lot of people get wrapped up into, oh, I'm not like them. I hate that. And true, and I've done the same way. So ages ago, I followed, sweet Jesus, so many other photographers. I've literally, at this point, follow less than 10. Yes, probably 10, maybe even less than 5. Because you see stuff, and you're like, oh, well, I'm not like them, or I'm not like this. I think what's better than maybe following other photographers is, if anybody knows Trent Foltz, I'm pretty good friends with Trent. He's a commercial photographer out of Geneseo. I don't know if he's on here tonight. He always says needs to pop in sometime. But he looks at other artists like painters. Other artists, I think, like painters and people who draw and things like that, can teach us probably more than another photographer can. Not that other photographers can't. Is like, I like Monet. I love Omaha Art Museum. The Joslin has a couple Monets. I love it because it's very impressionistic era of painting. I love that. That reminds me of ICM. So one time, let's talk about inspiration and being inspired. In the sense of, I don't even know why or where I came across, might have been Facebook. Probably my old art teacher from high school shared a Monet. I think it was Monet that did all it was an impressionistic painter anyway. And the first thing I looked at, it was like, wow, that painting looks like an out of focus photograph, which then got me thinking, what can I do to do that? Then it got me rolling. Okay, well, how do I make it look like that in a sense? Yeah, I could print it on canvas or a fine art paper, but then it got me. So I was there for a while. I did the ICM thing, but then I also went into out of focus, where I would manually focus whatever, hold it here, take it out of focus, and just kind of see things. And then I was starting to see like how light was differently with pinpoints of light and things like that. And then I was doing like shapes and color and things like that. So again, another piece. It wasn't a photograph. It was art. It was a painting. I will say sometimes I get least inspired by looking at other photographers. Don't get me wrong, Ansel Adams is great, but I don't get inspired by his work. If I want to deflate my balloon, I'll look at Ansel Adams stuff. Sorry. But I'm for him, I like photographers that are unknown. I love Vivian Mayer. She's really well known now. But Vivian Mayer had, I think she was a nanny. I may have my story wrong, but I think she was a nanny who had lots of undeveloped film and had a Rolleiflex or something like that. There's a book of Barnes and Nobles that they published now with her work. But somehow somebody got a hold of her film and developed it, and she's a world famous street photographer after she's dead. Her stuff was super cool. I like it. Not super known. She's not the, Ansel Adams of the world and, Keith Carter's and stuff like that. But I like her work. So maybe that can be inspirational. But I think some of the underdogs inspire me more than the well-known names. Robert Frank's the world and things like that. So look at other people's work. Just remember, don't get in that mindset of, oh, I'm not like them. I'm not like them. No, we don't want to be like them. I've had people say, Justin, I wish I could take photographs like you. I'm like, no, we don't need another Justin in the world. We do. I mean, if I inspire you to do something by one of my photographs, that's awesome. But I don't want you to want to be like me. And I don't want you to be like Ansel Adams. Maybe you can have a look of Ansel Adams, like a high contrast print or something, but don't be like Ansel Adams or me or whomever. So, look at other people's stuff. Maybe focus on more painters or drawers or something. Number 6. This one's a little one. It's a weird one, but sometimes you just have to stop. There are times where I'm not creative. I don't feel inspirational. I pick up the camera and I do all 1 through 4. I look at my creative idea journal. I look at a photo project. I try to maybe only use my phone, or I try to do different type of genre photography, or look at all this work. Like, I will go to Instagram and scroll all day long. And I'm not inspired. Not 1% am I inspired or feeling creative. And you know what? It's okay to put it all aside. Don't pick up a camera. I'll leave it wherever it all may be. And I do something kind of photography related, maybe in a sense, where I'll come down here and I'll work on business numbers. I'll look at accounting thing, or I'll do something totally non-creative. And guess what? It works almost every time. Maybe it's a week. Maybe it's 2 weeks, 30 days on average that I don't do anything. I just focus on other things. And it comes back. It's okay to put it down. You're not going to create images every day, all day. You're not going to feel creative 365, 24/7. That's okay. And just to say, screw it and chuck it out the window for a while isn't going to hurt anything, because it's going to take you to a different place. Maybe, I don't know, sometimes it's like I don't feel creative. I just go and do something else. Go to Barnes and Nobles, or, like I said, do some mundane task. And you know what? And that might be a day, 2 days, 30 days, 40 days. I don't know. But eventually it will come back. So just remember, it's okay to just don't force it. That's a good one. Don't force it on you. Don't force to be creative. Don't force yourself to do things. Because to me, that always puts me kind of in a slump. Oh, hey, Adelaide. How are you? Let's pop yours up here, if you can see it. She goes, I love looking at other photographers' work. I do get inspired, but then sometimes I get discouraged. Yes. I get discouraged, gee, many Christmases, that I will never be that good or have that opportunity. Now that I know a little bit about edits, I wonder how much is photoshopped. Ha, yes. I'll tell you, good question. Good observation, as I'll tell you this. Glacier National Park. I'm standing on the edge of Lake McDonald, and this wonderful lady, super nice lady, really early morning. I mean, I was up at 5:30. I was up at 5 every morning getting coffee by 5:30. I'm sitting on the edge of Lake McDonald, not doing a damn thing other than looking at the scenery, getting inspired. And this lady comes over, and she's got a little Nikon basic 3400, 3200, whatever. And she just kind of seems discouraged. And, And I have 2 cameras on me, and she acts like I'm some worldly photographer and wants to talk my ear about photography. Totally cool. I will do that any time of the day, especially with other people that I do not know. Find out she's from Germany. And she pretty much tells me I'm kind of bummed because this in front of us in this water does not look like what she saw. I was like, what do you mean what you saw? I mean, we're looking at it right here. It's Instagram. It doesn't look like Instagram. Nope. And she doesn't really call herself a photographer. She's just kind of like a snapshot person. And I said, well, one thing you should learn to do is not trust photographers. If you look at Lake McDonald, she's like, I can't see through the water like everybody. Yeah, they're using a polarizer. Well, the rocks are so much more vibrant. Yeah, they use saturation. So there's think of the world as there's reality and there's Instagram. Instagram always looks better than reality. Always, 9 times out of 10. I hate influencer photographers. Sorry. Yeah, I'm glad you can live in your van and travel the U.S. and you get promotional things in the world to sponsor TikTok videos and stuff. That's great. But those are usually liars, to be honest. I'll get off my soapbox here in a minute. But they are. Because they show you what, if you go to the Narrows at Zion, my wife and I were literally number 2 on the bus. There were 75 people behind us. We got to see the Narrows for about 45 seconds of no one in front of us, and after that, it was all gone. It's just how it works. I mean, it's a national park. They're chocked full of people now. I wish people would hate nature a little bit more. Sorry. And you know what's done it? TikTok, Instagram, YouTube. They get people all inspired and creative to go out and create photos, and then and guess what? I've seen all these cool images of Bryce Canyon or Zion where there's no one around. Yeah, well, they probably waited 6 hours. So, I mean, it is. You've got a perfect point, Lee, because you can feel discouraged or uninspired because of those kind of things. And you know what? I'm the same way. My wife says I need to not worry. There's things that I have this preconceived notion of what it's going to be. I'm going to get there and it's going to be this. Then I get there and I'm like, wah, it's not like that. And then I get discouraged. And then I learn to get out of that mindset. And how do I create images with all these people here? How do I do it? You just figure a way. So I'm glad you brought that up because, like you said, you wonder how much is photoshopped and not true representation of the scene. And I talk about that in my class with Paul's photo for intermediate landscape. You can have an impressionistic landscape. You can have a realistic landscape. So if I photograph Zion National Park realistically, I would have to add all those people in it. That's a realistic landscape. I made it look like there's no one there. I waited for nobody or I photoshopped people out. That's just how it works. And that's the world we live in. So let's hop on now. That was kind of like creativity, but how do we get inspired now as we it's 8:43 already. But photograph what inspires you. If you hate taking pictures of dogs and cats, don't photograph dogs and cats. If you find that portraits are your thing and you're doing landscapes, if you are not inspired or you're not wholeheartedly 110% really into what you want to photograph, it shows every time. In my world, yes, can I give you a good wedding image? Yes. Do I feel inspired at a wedding? Nope, not at all. Zilch, zero, nada, nothing. It's a business transaction for me. It is. We exchange money. I give you photos. You give me money. I come to your event. I take pictures. You're done. That's what a wedding is to me. I know people who see it the complete opposite. Complete opposite as me as, the perk is the money and being there and photographing the event, and they love creating beautiful wedding images for you to look on your wall for the next 30 years. That's not me. So I'm not inspired. So I'm not saying that you're going to get crappy photos from me. You'll get usable, nice images that you're going to be happy with. But I'm not going to have that wholehearted, inspirational. So photograph what inspires you. Kind of going back to, let's say you're not feeling inspired, and you haven't maybe photographed flowers in a while, but it's winter in Iowa. Drive to Hy-Vee. I got flowers up to galore there. Go buy a thing and be creative. I did that last winter. And like I talked a little bit before, that inspiration and the excitement of creativity kind of has that shelf life. So bounce on it when you can. If you can't, write it in your idea journal. Do whatever you're going to do from there. Kind of capture it, bottle it up, use it later if you can. The other thing is, one thing you can do is people say, well, how do you get inspired? Or if it's not other people's work, what it is? Well, it's a million other things. It can be a book. It can be music. It can be art. It can be a podcast. It can be whatever it is. So there's days like I wake up, go to work, sit at my desk, not on my mind anywhere, bouncing around up here is photography. And I got my headset on to make my sales call on one side, and I have an earbud in the right side. I listen to podcasts. And some days it's a business podcast, like how to be a better coach. Other days it's photography podcast. Sometimes it's even true crime, and just whatever. Now, I'm not saying that the true crime stuff inspires me, but sometimes I just need other things in this right ear that are just background noise for me. But I'm listening to a podcast. I even listen to a podcast on accounting for creatives. That's a lot of fun. But guess what? I'll pick up on something in that podcast. Or I might be scrolling through Instagram and I see a photograph and on break or lunch, or tonight, guess what I was doing? Scrolling through TikTok before this started. And I'll see something like, awesome. And at that point, I get inspired by something. So I write it down. Or I put it in the back drawer of my head and wait for it. So there's all these different things that can inspire you. I love, if you're looking for a good podcast, it's called Creative Pep Talk. I stumbled on him one day when I typed in creativity. That's all I typed in. And it pulled up. And it's mostly based for artists, but he's very different. I can't think of the guy's name off the top of my head, but it's called the Creative Pep Talk. And he's got all this stuff about things you can do to be creative or things to get over this or that. I mean, he's been doing it for quite a while, so it's not like a new podcast. There's like 3 episodes. There's a whole litany, I think well over 100. The Beginners Photography Podcast. That's one that I like. And yes, this is beginners. I listen to it all the time. Never hurts to go back to the basics, or there's something in there that he's interviewing another photographer, and there's a little one word. Sometimes for me, it's one word that somebody says, and bam, my creative juices are flowing and it's rolling. And I'm like, ooh, what about this or this or this or that or that? Or like, what? I haven't thought about that in a long time. Maybe I should try it. Things like that. So one thing, too, that you can do is books. So I have a whole plethora of books here real quick. But I stumbled across this. He's a New York Times bestseller, Austin Kleon, Kleon, don't much matter. So the first book you should probably read is Steal Like an Artist. I love his books because they're very different. They're not like on like, it's like written kind of things. This is an awesome book to get started. It's like a series of 3. So first one is Steal Like an Artist. It's 10 things nobody told you about being creative. And it's super cool. They're very short. I think this book's like, 64 pages. It's all things he's done and kind of how he started. I think this is what made him a New York Times bestseller, the first one. Then the next book, I don't know how these go in order, but I need to reread this one. I read this one on the way in the car to Glacier. The other one is Show Your Work. Show Your Work is 10 ways to share your creativity and get discovered. I mean, again, I always tell people I have 3 things, whether it's my podcast, these things, talking to you about photography, whatever it may be, is my new stickers I just got. There's 3 words on the top: inspire, create, share. I want to inspire you to create images and share them with the world. So this book is kind of the same way. It's, 10 ways to share your creativity and get discovered. I don't even care if you want to get discovered. Some of us are not here to be discovered, and that's okay. But he has this fun little chart. It says, should I share this? Is it useful or interesting? Yes, share it. No, toss it. Is it useful or interesting? I don't know. Save it for later. Goes back to the idea journal. Like one part in here is work doesn't speak for itself. Number 6, teach what you know. Share your trade secrets. He writes in here that the world of barbecue is notoriously secretive and competitive. So it was a little bit of shock last winter for me to be standing in front of the legendary Franklin Barbecue here in Austin, Texas. So he goes through talking about crowdfunded in the YouTube series and things like when you're doing it, like don't become human spam. These 3 books are awesome. I need to start this one again and reread this one. And there's one I've started reading, but keep going. 10 ways to stay creative in good times and bad. So for you guys, I would say I would get all 3, but get these 2. These are 2 great books to start out with. So these can help you be creative or ways to be creative when you're not. Then I just started another book. It's How to Be an Artist by Jerry Stoltz. This book I love. What's funny is I don't love to read, and obviously I'm going to read more and then I don't. But these are really short things. Like number 2, imagination is more important than knowledge. It's literally 1 page, not even a full page. Then it goes on to the next one. Number 3, tell your own story and you will be interested. So this one I like. It's one of those things. But what's super cool is like this one, number 20. I haven't gotten that far. It says art is a flatworm. And it talks a little bit about, I don't know, stuff. And then there's an exercise at the end of it. So this is one I went to Barnes and Noble's. It was one of those days I wasn't inspired. I got bored. I went and found a book. This is one that I fell in love with it. I haven't fallen in love with it. But Zen Camera. Zen Camera, it's the creative awakening with a daily practice in photography. Now, what I love about this book is one, it's a hardcover book. Not that means I like hardcover books. But it has the introduction, but then you can go into, and there's nice, beautiful photographs in the book and things like that. But as you go through, this one says, don't be afraid to look and look deeply, and it's got portraits. Here's one, I make notes in books. So the 5 visual elements of photography, the frame, light, the moment, the use of color and tonality, and treatment of the subject. One of those 5 things right there could be things that you could go and photograph or work on. I made notes in here, like the frame, and he talks about the light, and there are all these things. And for some reason, I don't know, it's been a while, so I underlined, when you place objects very close to the edge of the frame, a dynamic tension emerges between the subject and the palpable frame and vibrating region. That's real artsy to me. But I think the reason I underlined that, thinking back, is I remember Trent Foltz in a presentation talking about edge tension and putting something up to the edge. So it's things like that. Out of this whole page of 5 paragraphs, I underlined one thing. So this is a book. It's super cool, but this is what I like about it. As you get to the end of each chapter, if I can find one, there are exercises. Things that you can do. Like tools and exercises. Try mirrors and windows. There you are. You don't know what to photograph? Bam, open the book. So that's one thing that's super nice. It's a good book. Barnes & Noble's carries it. How to Be an Artist by Jerry Stoltz. That was at Barnes & Noble's. I could not find the Austin Kleon, whatever his name is, series. I had to buy it off Amazon. And it was actually, I got all 3 cheaper. Any questions so far on anything? No? Okay. Then maybe it's just not even books, magazines. So I'm a member of Professional Photographers of Iowa, but I'm also a member of PPA, which is the national level Professional Photographers of America. For $34 a month, I get all this access through them, all that fun businessy stuff, but I also get this, Professional Photographers magazine, every month. I love it. I hate digital magazines. I like paper. But there's everything in here from business stuff, like boring, save money with 17 hats, whatever. It's business stuff. It's ads. But there's photographs. I'm trying not to get the glare. There we are. You know, I don't know, I might look at something and be like, well, that's not what I think. But then there's stuff about gear. I don't like you to be inspired by gear, but if you are like buying gear, it's not a way to be inspired. But some people do it. You know, like this. Like for people, I do food photography. I really like this image. Oops, sorry, this one right here. Maybe that's, I don't even know what it is. Oh, it's ice cream, kind of melted. I don't know. I just, to be honest, something just popped in my head. It's like, who says we have to photograph ice cream perfectly? Now, for a client, yeah, it wouldn't have to be perfect, but who says I can't come over here and set up, use color theory and use a different color base? See, this is how my mind works. I'm going to let you into it for a moment. I just looked at this and thought, what happens if I took an ice cream cone and I jammed that ice cream cone on a light stand and I photograph it? I'm thinking like really up close. And who says it can't be melting? I don't know. That's just where my mind went. And that, other than all it was melted ice cream. So that's how my mind just worked. But there's stuff like this. Oh, like see donuts. I mean, there's stuff in, I don't, to tell you the honest, I do not usually read these cover to cover. I just go and look at photos. You know, I don't know, these are in, I just got this in the mail. This is the first time I'm looking at it. I kind of like this one. That's kind of fun. The one with the, it's all backwards. The people here, I don't, it's just different stuff, you know. It's things you can be inspired by. You know, there's business stuff in here, but whatever. You can find magazines, but that's like all photo and creativity stuff, like books on how to be creative. But there's this one. If I'm doing a food shoot, I will pull this book out on occasion and look at it, no matter what I'm photographing. This is a cookbook. It's the French Laundry Cookbook. I went to culinary school, for the ones that don't know. And I have not getting to eat at the French Laundry, but it's Thomas Keller, well-known chef. But look at these photographs. Ooh, and glare. Yeah. Like, look at these things. Like, this is like a, like, I mean, this is like fancy stuff, like pickled oysters with English cucumber and capellini and dill. You know, but look at this. These are photos. Come on. Like, that's rolling pasta. And there's, you know, I'm backwards. You know, it's food photos. So is this anything to do with photography? No, it's not. It's a cookbook. But like, there's a photo here of cutting fresh pasta and with a rolling or with a cutter, and the cutter's blurry. You know, it's just stuff that can help you be inspired. What is this one? This one says roasted guinea fowl. But look at that. That's a weird image. That is not like a normal cookbook image. So it's even think of non-related photo stuff. Any of these things can go. That's all I have for books. But, you know, I mean, there's so much stuff. I mean, there's so many things that can make you feel creative as we wrap up here. I mean, there's a million things. So let's shoot me some questions. We got, I don't know, in theory, 2 minutes left, but there's 11 of you still here. So you have me as long as you need, but shoot me some questions. Let's roll. Out of all that blabbering, somebody's bound to have a burning question. And I always say no questions, but I think if there's a delay. What is this? One of my mini notes. I have lots of papers like this that float around out of books. Probably pieces of idea journals. No questions whatsoever? Oh, come on. Nothing. Okay, I guess we can wrap up then. But, so, if something pops up, I'll answer it. But just let me know. So as we kind of wrap up here, next week will be the last late night exposures for 3 weeks. Because, obviously, it's Christmas Eve. No one wants to listen to me blab on Christmas Eve. Oh, yes, Pamela says, several great ideas, mainly write down ideas. That is the way to do it. Oh, Becky says, When you go out and do your Iowa shoots, let me show this. Iowa shoots, how do you decide where you go? Good question. I don't, to be honest. A majority of times, I just will pick a direction and I go with my gut every time. I'm like, I haven't been northeast for a while. So what I do is I just pick a highway, I hit the highway, and I'll usually take the first gravel and go. And then if I get, like, let's say, Becky, I go to a 4-way stop in the middle of nowhere. I'll look right, I look straight, I look left. I don't know. Right isn't very inspiring. I don't have a good feel about going right or going straight. Maybe it's left. I'll go left. There's times I've gone north of Cedar Rapids and somehow ungodly reason ended up by Iowa City because I just go right, left, up, down, whatever on the map. So I don't. I mean, I just get out and drive. And sometimes that's a good point too. Driving just inspires me. I see things or, I'm just like thinking. I do lots of thinking when I drive the back road. So yeah, I mean, for me, there are times where I'm like, okay, I am going to Northeast Iowa as far as I can go. And that's about as planned as it gets. So, let's see. So yes, back to as we're kind of wrapping up, unless any other questions pop up, yes, nobody wants to listen to me blabber on Christmas Eve. So we won't have one on Christmas Eve. And then I didn't know how people were going to be on New Year's. Connie says my kind of travel. Yes, that is exactly my kind too. And then New Year's Eve, I don't know, I'm not going anywhere, but I figured other people do. So we'll skip that week. And then obviously, then I think it's the 7th of January. I'm actually out of town in Omaha, so we won't be there. But then we come back, I think, it's the 21st, I think. I don't know. The next one in my head is, whatever's after the 7th, we're going to do winter, like tips for photographing in the winter, because eventually we're going to get snow. And then the last one in January will be planning your photo trip. And I'll kind of talk about, kind of like Becky just asked, how do I do the short-term Iowa stuff? Or how do I plan, like when I went to Zion, because that I flew, that was different. Versus, like when we go out to Mesa Verde and Great Sand Dunes National Park in May, that's going to be a week there. Between those two national parks, we're driving, so that's going to be easy. I can take more gear, less gear. So we are going to do that. So we'll talk about that kind of stuff. If you have ideas for late night exposures, I would love them. I'm always trying to come up with something different, and it's all about you guys. I want you guys to be interested to show up. So shoot me an email at justin@tedfordphoto.com if you do have any ideas. That would be awesome. Or you're more than welcome to message me through Facebook. The other thing is this does every week go live on Facebook and YouTube. I am slowly building a YouTube channel. I'm hoping maybe after the new year, maybe come up with some real basic YouTube videos on some stuff, quick 5 tips on this or a little bit of this or whatever. So it would be awesome to go out and like and subscribe to the YouTube thing, hit the little bell so you get reminders, all that good stuff. So if I do drop anything, all the late night exposure stuff does drop on Facebook afterwards, so you can catch past ones. It's great. You can go and put like rewatch or something. I don't know, just so I know people are looking at them again. You can also go out and do it on YouTube. So they're all out there. And one ask, it would be super, super great of everybody is if you would, I'm trying to get more different people, like people I don't know. Not that I don't love talking to everybody that I know, but I know a lot of people with PhotoPro being gone, and especially all of us in Eastern Iowa, where I know the closest camera store is going to be an hour and a half. Your next camera store is going to be 2 hours away. And then following that, you're going to be either Minneapolis, Omaha, or Madison. I know there's a lot of people out there wanting to learn, and this is why I do this, is to teach and help people. So share this stuff. Share a video and say, hey, whatever you want to say about it. I'm going to tell you what to say, because I shouldn't tell you what to say. But, go out, like it, share it, push it out there, let the rest of the world see it, because Facebook doesn't do that for us. So any other last questions before we wrap up this evening? I always do enjoy and thank everybody for taking, a whole hour of their Saturday night, this late in the evening to come over and listen to me blab. So, but everybody knows where to find me. If you got questions, I'm over on Facebook, Instagram. I'm even on TikTok. You might find a few fun things there, wherever. But, hopefully everybody has a wonderful rest of their weekend. Again, thank you for joining. I do enjoy everybody that comes on, asks questions, and thank you for your support as always. So I'm going to sign off. Have a wonderful Saturday night, Sunday, and the rest of your week, and I will see you all next week. Have a good